May you live in interesting times, and it certainly is for space weather. Thanks for joining us. We're looking at a 24-hour video here from the GOES-R. That is ionized helium and ionized iron. And you may see some activity kicking off in the southwestern limb down there. We'll talk about it. At least one additional CME headed toward Earth's direction. So that's another 3 on the way. We'll tell you all about it here at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. By the way, thanks for tuning in. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. So here's that active sunspot that is setting in the southwest. Its propensity to produce an X-class flare is certainly very high, and you can expect that to continue for the next 24 to 36 hours. Its possibility of producing an X-class solar flare as it sets. Sunspots like to make a big entrance and a big exit. They are most likely to produce large solar flares when they are at the limb. By the way, we are streaming this on our Twitch channel, which we have conveniently included right at the Smash Team homepage at smashomash.com/SmashTeam. If you want email alerts and so forth, sign up for those at the Smash Team site. We send those out for bronze, silver, and gold level Smash Team members, but you've got to sign up for them. If you don't sign up for them, that's on you. Here's a close-up of that region, and that is some pretty sweet footage indeed. So multiple CMEs there, including one that is in the process of happening right now. There's a second one happening as well. So, yeah, lots of stuff to cover indeed. Let's briefly take a look at some more features here. We do have a crown prominence hanging out down at the southern polar region. You see this area right down here. That's a type of prominence known as a crown prominence, and those are pretty much non-existent around solar minimum. And as you get closer to solar maximum, you can expect to see more and more of those type of features. We also do have a new sunspot that just rose just below the Earth scale there. And also up here, this sunspot is actually in the process of producing a coronal mass ejection as we produce the video. So lots of active regions here and lots of activity in general. Also some additional huge plasma filaments rising here over the northeastern limb. Probably some more sunspots or at least major active regions up there. 2 crown prominences up at the north polar region. And let's briefly move to sunspots before we get into what's going on planet Earth. Yeah, planet Earth. So here is the sunspot situation for yesterday plus today. Again, there are 2 groups that haven't been named yet up here in the northwest. I think this group needs a name up here, and there is a new group that just rose down here. So yeah, at least I think there are 4 new groups that will get names today. There is our colorized magnetogram for yesterday plus today, and again, my favorite spot for an X-class flare at the moment is down here. You'll see that the NASA Solar Flare Monitor indeed agrees with us on that. And let's see what's going on croissant Earth. Yeah, Earth, it's shaped like a croissant, folks. And before we get into some more space weather information here, just a brief note. We do have a merch shop, so check out the link below the video to the Redbubble shop. You'll find the products in order of best selling, I believe it is. And you can save 20% on all Redbubble items. Our second newest product is We'll Keep an Eye on It. Leave it to us. May that solar wind be at your back. It does also include the YouTube channel URL there and a very high resolution 171 edited image there from the SDO. So 171 angstroms is the house favorite wavelength. Don't worry, folks. We'll keep an eye on it. And when I say ion, well, pardon the pun. By the way, you're looking at ions. Very hot iron gas, actually. too hot to hold on to its electrons. That's what the 171 angstroms wavelength shows. Anyway, speaking of hot, there's some pretty hot lava there coming out of Litlihurter in Nordur. That's part of the Reykjanes Peninsula. And there you can see some new real estate being generated in southwestern Iceland. That live feed there from livefromiceland.is. If you want to check it out yourself. Let's see what else is erupting here. So that is a series of eruptions. A lengthy rift has opened in Iceland. And we're like 6 days in here. A cauldron of boiling lava leaks out of that cinder cone that we showed you. So it's part of the Reykjanes Peninsula, Fagradalsfjall, and so on. I don't know. I'm clicking read more and nothing's happening. They have closed down they've like widened the safety radius around there, as there is some dangerous gas coming out of those rifts. Sakurajima is also erupting apparently, producing approximately a 5,000-foot ash plume. It's a flight level 050. Unknown volcanic ash plume over the Isle of Luzon, Philippines from Mayan. Possible volcanic ash continuing from Popocatépetl. Nevado de Ruiz in Colombia producing a 24,000-foot ash plume. Not sure about Sangay, Revenador. Some volcanic emissions there from Revenador. Sabancaya producing a 27,000-foot ash plume as it explodes. It's a flight level 270, flight level 240 from Ubinas in Peru. It's also exploding. It's a 24,000-foot ash plume. Folks, please do not pole vault the caldera. It could be unhealthful. Here's the past 90 days of seismic activity, and the largest quake, of the past 24 hours has been a 6.6 at Argentina, near the Argentina-Chile border. There is a location of that. East of the Andes, it came in at 3:05 Universal Time this morning. It was at depth, over 170 kilometers estimated depth, and we'll cite the other quakes that are above a 5 magnitude. Quick note, we may be seeing foreshocks here. I do remember saying something about the possibility of a Southern California quake. There was a 4.3 down there. So anyway, here come the 5 or larger magnitude quakes. There was a 5.1 in Mexico. That was at 13:44 Universal Time yesterday. There was also a 5.1 at Papua New Guinea. That was at 16:14 Universal Time yesterday on July 16th. That's 6.6. Again, it came in at 3:05 this morning on July 17th. 7/17/2023. Indonesia had a 5.6. That was at 4:42 this morning. And those are the 5+ magnitude quakes. Now, getting back to space, we're going to show you the equatorial view and the wavelengths that we started out at. That's the GOES-R. 304 plus 195 angstroms depicting ionized helium, and 304 angstroms on ionized iron, and 195 angstroms. Here we've swapped out the ionized helium for a different species of ionized iron. That's 171 plus 195 angstroms. Another 24-hour video from GOES-R. And here is the 171 angstroms wavelength by itself. So continuing on to space weather stats, the 10.7 centimeter radio flux is currently at 184 solar flux units. Here's the 1-year graph to put it in context. Having broken out of a number of support levels here, and it's anybody's guess as to what happens next as the floodgates are open for solar maximum. You can expect it to show up in about 9 months. So about 18 months of levels of this activity or even higher. As far as forecasting coronal mass ejections, NASA doesn't have any headed this way. And we've got 3. We'll tell you more about that later in the video before we get to our bonus features segment and our meteorology segment. As far as NOAA's forecast, it looks a little bit similar to our forecast. So NOAA's forecasting 1 additional CME, coronal mass ejection, to show up late in the day today or early in the day tomorrow, somewhere around there. So it might be another night of the possibility of aurora. So that's NOAA's forecast. And if you look at the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard, the reasoning is because of a CME on the way. So we think there are 3 CMEs on the way. It's going to be another about 3 days of heightened space weather activity. That's a lot of Earth-directed coronal mass ejections in the past week. And anyway, there's the forecast. NOAA is expecting geomagnetic unrest to begin late tonight on July 17th and continue until late in the afternoon tomorrow on July 18th. And then some additional geomagnetic unrest late in the day on July 19th. So I agree with that, but then there's also some additional activity coming on July 20th. So yeah, it may just be that we're a little too early for NOAA's forecast, so look for them to update that later today. Here's the current situation in terms of Earth's magnetic moment from space. That's the past 4 hours of magnetohydrodynamic pressure. And there is some equilibrium attempting to be reached there. You can see that plasma swinging around to reach static equilibrium. Next, we'll show the last 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. And there are quite a few magnetic perturbations here happening at the moment. This depicts changes to Earth's B field, geospace delta B, Earth's magnetic moment from the ground, and the change therein. So when it says, whenever you see delta in science, that means change in. So this is change in nanotesla at the ground level, magnetic flux density. So there may be quite a few aurora that have been visible in the past few hours. If you do have auroral imagery, share it with us on Instagram or on Discord. You can find our Discord channel at smashamash.com. You can also share it with us on Twitter. Planetary K-index currently in geomagnetic unrest conditions, KP 4.33, and we've had the stormiest conditions here for quite a long time. Come in right before midnight last night. It was all because of magnetic field stuff. Let's talk about that next. Current condition is geomagnetic unrest. You can expect this to calm down in the next update. So, and here's why. It's this top pane. So right here, if you look at the magnetic field strength and orientation, otherwise known as the BTBZ, the field is kind of weak, and we have a strongly positive BZ signal there, represented by that red line. So expect the geomagnetic unrest to end at the next update. Here was a CME impact right here. And it did include some significant fields. So that is why there was a geomagnetic storm, because of the strength and orientation of that magnetic field. The solar wind density wasn't very high, and the solar wind speed wasn't that high either. This latest uptick in solar activity has been a coronal hole high-speed stream. Check it out. Here's the density wave. Density drops off. Velocity comes up. It is a very weak coronal hole stream. So don't expect that to create any fireworks. That is the last 24 hours of real-time solar wind data. The current conditions are about 2 protons per cubic centimeter for solar wind density, solar wind speed here just under 500 kilometers per second. GOES magnetometers here showing some pretty wild swings. Again, the system is trying to reach static equilibrium, and the fields got weak. So because of that weak field situation and that positive BZ component, that's the vertical component of the magnetic field, the geomagnetic unrest will be ending here at the next update. So there are GOES magnetometers for the past 3 days. Some pretty odd gyrations happening there in the GOES magnetometers, as there are some pretty abrupt shifts in the solar wind environment. Next, our top view ecliptic plane field plot, perhaps the best predictive value of any of our solar data features. We've demonstrated for years the ability to actually forecast new sunspot growth just by looking at this view. And the current situation is we are seeing some not a lot of changes there. So there is a sector boundary crossing. If you look at the last image, we're still a couple days out from that. Here comes a sector boundary crossing. Earth is currently in a South Pole-oriented current sheet. So here is the line of sight field plot. The solar B field here depicted in blue, that's the field that goes through the magnet if this magnet is the sun. Polar fields in green for north and red for south, and the gray is the gong magnetogram there. You can see lots of organized magnetism there on the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk. And here is our line of sight field coronal hole plot. So we've got North Pole coronal holes rotating in here in the southeast and rotating out in the northwest. So it's a pretty complex situation right here. We've got multiple polarities coronal holes all at the same time, and let's take a look at those in SDO 211 angstroms. So that's pretty interesting. I mean, let me go back to this for just a quick moment. So these are south and these two are north. So you've got a North Pole coronal hole up here, a North Pole coronal hole down here, and then these are South Pole in between. So that's interesting. It is a magnetically complex coronal hole environment despite being in a South Pole oriented current sheet. That brings us to sunspots. And here's a situation. You can see there is a incredibly high likelihood of X-class solar flares here, right? So if you look at that imagery there, you can clearly see that it is indeed more likely than not to be in the process of producing a massive solar flare. So there you go. Especially weird. It's not showing this group as most likely. It's showing this group, but expect to see an X-class flare from 3363. That is the most likely place to see a large flare. Maybe they have this mislabeled here, but it's showing that this group over here is the 55% likely. Anyway, 3363, highly likely to produce a large flare. Also, 3373 is a prime contender. Also, this group up here is highly likely to produce a large solar flare. And let's move to sunspots. So here's a sunspot situation in magnetogram. No major changes happening there. Let's switch to the intensitygram. Please realize that is not quite a 24-hour video. There have been some issues with the SDO data feed and the security certificates in the past couple of days, so that is still a lot of sunspots. And again, some of them have to get names because we've got two groups up here that ought to get names. And then there is, there's one down here, I think, that doesn't have a name yet. We've got like 4 sunspot groups. There's one in the northeast that doesn't have a name yet. So a bunch of sunspot groups here that have to get names today. You can expect an uptick in the sunspot number, even as that massive group in the southwest sets. So we'll do solar flares and energetic particles here in just a minute. Before we get to that, absolutely nothing, because here is energetic particle situation. And the proton flux here returning to baseline levels. That's not really causing any likely polar radial blackouts at those levels. The proton flux here is settling down, although it could stay like that for a couple of days yet. X-ray flux here has actually risen. The base X-ray output now is at about C2. And there were some significant flares here, some at least 2 M-class intensifications in the past 24 hours. Let's take a look at one of the better flare wavelengths. Here's 94 angstroms from the GOES-R. So certainly at least one large flare came from this group, 3363 in the southwest. I think one of the M flares came from this group up here. So again, very high likelihood of large flares continues. These are just facts. And by the way, folks, solar flares are predictable. When the magnetic shear of the sunspot gets into a certain configuration, they become very likely to produce solar flares. This has been a known thing for like 20 years now, at least. And yeah, those are just the facts. That's the past 24 hours. Goes are 131 angstroms. And let's take a close look at that southwestern limb. It's where the activity has been happening and is currently happening. Well, you know what? I stand corrected. I think both of those M flares came from that group. And here's an even closer look. Perhaps that is today's money shot. And don't forget to press that thumbs up button if you enjoy the money shot and the rest of our shots. It is a painstaking process to put all of these videos together. It might look easy, and if you think it's easy, we challenge you to create videos like ours. We need more people studying the sun, not less. So you're invited to join the space weather crew. Next, let's take a look at what's going on overhead. Yeah, what's going on overhead over Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania looks like this. It's cloudy skies, I think, but that is what's happening. We've got, looks like a new moon up there. And, yeah, that's what's going on overhead. I sound like a broken record saying this, but if you're viewing the dusk sky, check out Venus and Mars up there near the ecliptic. Next, our solar system forecast from theplanetstoday.com. This is where heavenly bodies are today. That is besides the ones that are watching this video. Here's where they'll be in 1 week. We will have a crescent waxing moon by the 24th of July. And let's move on to coronal mass ejections. Hey, check it out. There's a comet there. I didn't even see it because I was so busy looking at the CMEs from yesterday. There goes a comet. Oh, who knew? I didn't even see that. Interesting. So there are 160 frames from yesterday. And we already talked about that first CME, which we're expecting to arrive on the 19th. Like late in the day on the 19th. And guess what? There is another CME. So there's one that's headed toward Earth. At least a component of it is likely to strike. And here are today's frames. And guess what? Another one has a halo. Another indication that it is on the way toward Earth. So again, 3 more CMEs on the way, folks. It's exciting times for space weather. And check out our custom videos. Now, unfortunately, the Soho-Lasco C3 is lacking data here, so that's why it's not synced. I mean, it is synced. It's just that for some reason, Soho-Lasco C3 is only returning 1 photograph every 3 hours, so that is less than optimal. But if you zoom in more closely, you get a great view. That's the GOES R 195 angstroms wavelength and Soho-Lasco C2. So right toward the end of that, right here, that's the latest CME that's headed our direction. Expect CME impacts tonight, tomorrow, and on Sunday. I mean, not Sunday, the 20th, not Sunday. All right, it's Monday, and it's been a long year. Yeah, it's been a long year, folks. So here's another 24-hour video for you, and yeah, it's exciting stuff. And notice how the CME impacts are not shutting down civilization or causing anybody to have to get into their bunker. The CME impacts are working out just fine. Earth's magnetosphere is just fine, and the atmosphere isn't blowing off into space, and the ozone layers, well, maybe it's being depleted, I don't know, but here's the past 24 hours in GOES R 195 angstroms. Space weather, not that scary. But stargazing is pretty freaking sweet, wouldn't you say? It's sweet enough to do for the past 6 years. So anyway, let's get back to CMEs and so on. We'll show you a brief breakdown of this latest one that is headed our direction. Here is the Soho Lasco C2. And there it is. You can see that partial halo. Most of that will miss Earth to the west. Part of it will likely strike Earth. So sometimes you have to use deductive reasoning to figure out if CMEs are earthly directed. There comes another one. That's the one that's actually in the process of happening right now. Part of that is in the process of collapsing also. Let's take a look at stereo A as well. And feel free to pause the video on this frame. You can see stereo A is very close to the Earth as they're overtaking each other. Same with stereo B. Let's just pause the Soho Lasco C3 there because it's pointless. So here is this morning CME, and right there at about 7 o'clock, kablooey. Another coronal mass ejection headed toward Earth. And let's talk filaments next. We still do have quite a few filaments. Often these filaments become coronal mass ejections. And there are certainly some noteworthy ones at both poles. Right down here. Also one rising here in the southeast. Here's the current past couple of hours here from the GOES 18 SUVI, 304 angstroms wavelength. Again, there is another event happening right up here. So that could just be a plasma reorientation, or that could be a CME. It's a little too early to tell. We will keep an eye on it. And when I say ion, well, you probably get the joke by now. And that brings us to our bonus feature segment. By the way, thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network, Least Busted Name in News. If you think that's a dig on CNN, it absolutely is. The least trusted name in news, perhaps. We're the least busted name in news. I am clean enough to eat off of. Squeaky, indeed. So first, we're going to look at satellite charging hazards, and we've got some significant ones here over Mexico and moving into the central Pacific Ocean there, currently in the East Pacific. Those are low-energy electrons that build up on the outside of spacecraft. It is on the early morning side of things, yes. So some charging hazards there from spacecraft that could create some minor communications breakdowns. Electron flux here remains cratered. It is coming up off the floor here, so if you look at just the latest 6 hours, you can see it is rising a little bit here, but currently still quite low. Keep in mind there is all kinds of space weather hitting, including a coronal hole high-speed stream, so we're not expecting that to come back up. There's the one-year graph to put it in context, about as low as she gets with the relativistic electrons. There is the forecast model. That is NOAA's forecast, and if you've watched yesterday's video, you notice that today's forecast was right on point. I would tend to agree with this. Similar to lower levels, and they might come up here, so this could be correct. I won't argue with any of those forecasts, which are depicted by the green boxes. The yellow diamonds are the observation. Let's look at the layer where that's measured. The F layer of the ionosphere is where the electron flux is measured. And allow me to get off screen. And here is the Australian Bureau of Meteorology's ionosphere map. That is the vibrational frequency in megahertz. And frankly, it's looking pretty normal, as most of these CME impacts and coronal hole high-speed streams have been weak. Give that a minute to play through one more time, and then we'll show the anomalygram. Here's the anomaly from megahertz. The anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median. And no major anomalies happening in the ionosphere. things are pretty chill up there at the bridge between Earth and space. Here's the latest image, 12 o'clock universal time ionogram and 12 o'clock universal time anomalygram. Total electron content depicts free electrons to about 12,500 miles of altitude. Feel free to pause the video on this frame if you're not familiar with these distances in miles. Here is the total electron content forecast. It'll show you the most likely places to see GPS errors, as when your GPS satellite must communicate through a lot of free electrons to get to your handset, you can experience signal refraction of thousands of miles. In other words, massive errors on your GPS. Try turning on Wi-Fi location accuracy if that's an issue. We do have quite anomalous electron contents here. So lots of electrons here out of place. That is typical of CME and coronal hole high-speed stream impacts. You can expect to see major anomalies in the total electron content to continue here for days with the incoming multiple space weather events, mostly coronal mass ejections. 3 of them on the way. Here's the total electron content anomaly from the 10-day average over North America. Let us know in the comments if you expect to see a 6+ magnitude quake around San Andreas or perhaps Baja California. As a couple of days ago, we saw a signal there, so you never know when an Earth-based signal shows up in the space-based data. That's your total electron content anomaly from 10-day average over at North America, and we will close out the space weather section of this video with the latest intensitygram and the latest colorized magnetogram. So first of all, we'll take a look at this new sunspot. It is currently already beta gamma class because I can see a trailing umbra there. Wait a minute. Is that North Pole? I believe that is a North Pole leading umbra, folks. That is a backward polarity sunspot. Having a little trouble believing that, but it could be the case. If it is the case, that could be a solar cycle 26 sunspot, but I doubt it because of its location. They usually start out at much higher latitudes than that. But in any case, at the moment it is, I would expect it to be beta gamma class, but what I see here is a North Pole umbra, probably trailed by a South Pole umbra. So it looks like a reverse polarity sunspot. That was unexpected indeed. This sunspot down here is extremely large, and it is magnetically complex enough to produce a large flare. Remember, folks, if the plasma moving around is what actually causes the flare, keep in mind the magnetic fields organize that plasma. So if the plasma is what's responsible for causing the flare, then it's distinctly possible that CMEs cause solar flares and not vice versa. This is why we don't state on the channel that the solar flare caused a coronal mass ejection, because cause and effect matter in physics, and chicken versus egg arguments are super important. That is beta gamma class. And let's see, do we have deltas? We have some minor deltas there, but its proximity to the limb is the main thing that has us ramping up the solar flare watch. Solar flare watch currently at nearly 100% for M-class and like 90% for X-class flares. So there's a situation. These sunspot groups are certainly capable of large flares as well, and really even this group down here, but especially, so this is my favorite spot for a large flare. Second favorite spot would be this group. Third favorite spot would be this group. Fourth favorite spot would be this group. But this group by far is the most likely place to see a large solar flare. Continuing right along, to invite you to join us over at the Smash Team site. Smashomash.com/SmashTeam is our homepage. Smashomash.com is our homepage. Smashomash.com/SmashTeam is our custom subscription services site, similar to Patreon, to provide extra content for those of you who are willing to open your cobweb-encrusted wallets and send us a few bucks per month. For example, at the silver or the gold level. There's even a bronze level. If you're looking for things like tsunami and space weather alerts, even the bronze level gets those. That'll cost you $0 a month. The best value is the gold annual paid-up subscription. It's like getting 4 months of a gold membership for free because it includes complimentary merch. Smashomash.com is the homepage. And visit us on social media. Press the share button, like, subscribe, etc. Leave a comment, even a derogatory comment. We love those. And if you think you're going to hurt my feelings in the comment section, you are deluded. Deeply, deeply deluded. You are not going to hurt my feelings in the comment section. Also, follow us on Instagram if you want things like diet, fitness, lifestyle stuff that's got nothing to do with space weather. Also, some meteorology stuff showing up there occasionally. And make sure you follow us on Twitter also. You can have hilarious discussions about contrails and how people think that contrails are geoengineering and contrails in the troposphere are solar radiation management efforts and things like this. Some hilarious and great people over there on Twitter. Also some great auroral imagery and so on Twitter that you won't see anyplace else. And if you've unplugged entirely from social media, we don't blame you, because the state of censorship is completely pathetic. And if you think censorship has ended over on Twitter, you are deluded about that. Let's move to meteorology, and yowzers, check out the freaking Saharan dust. Dudes, that is major Saharan dust. And it's tamping down this system. Look at this system is sucking Saharan dust into it. Look at how dense that Saharan dust cloud is. That is going to make for zero convective systems in that part of the Atlantic Ocean. And look at that dust sucking in there. That is not a benefit. For those of you who wanted to see a hurricane form there, it's becoming less and less likely. Saharan dust. It is a major factor that might not even figure into some weather models, believe it or not. But look at the amount of dust there. That is pretty berserk. And of course, the jet stream is blowing backwards over northern Africa and this northern Indian Ocean. So that is sort of part of the reason for that. There are the jet streams of the central world. Ta-da! And these are the surface winds. Surface winds of the east, depicted here. And once again to our viewers in this circle, press the share button, as our market saturation in that area containing over 3 billion people is almost 0%. So press that share button. Here is our jet stream map for this side of the planet. And you can see that jet stream here making a huge bend over the western Pacific and then blown backwards over the Philippines, the northern Indian Ocean, and North Africa. Here are the jet streams of the Americas, the western world. Huge anticyclone here over Arizona. You can see that clockwise upper level rotation there, indicating a high pressure zone up in the jet stream layer. And there is the surface wind scenario for this side of the planet. And we've got a huge air quality series of forecasts here as smoke is making its way back down to the U.S. So there is your PM 2.5 particulate index. Expect lots of air quality alerts over especially the northern and eastern portion of the country. Some of those alerts extending all the way down into the Gulf of Mexico. That's windy.com's PM 2.5. And let's take a look at what's going on in terms of clouds and fog over the Americas. So that's what's going on from our space-based 3.9 micrometer shortwave radiation infrared map, part of the NASA GOES Interactive Weather Satellite Suite. As the hours of summer dwindle, and the hours of winter do also in the southern hemisphere. So lots of weather alerts here, folks. Dag. Lots of weather alerts indeed. That's weather.gov. Go visit weather.gov, the National Weather Service homepage. If you've got weather alerts and you don't know what they are, tropical storm watch there on the east coast of the big island of Hawaii. Weather.gov is where to get your alerts, and let's see some forecasts. But first, our smoke map. So we tried to bring up the Canadian smoke map, and it wasn't really functioning there. I've pressed refresh, and it's not loading. So here's this one is fire.airnow.gov, and lots of smoke there. So Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Grand Rapids, the central U.S. there, getting quite a bit of smoke coming in. Again, that Canadian site not really working. So here comes some forecasts. First, we're going to show you the jet stream forecast. This is the 250 millibar winds based on a GFS model for the next 72 hours. The jet stream is going to move these systems to the east here, and it looks like it's going to get smokier in Pennsylvania in the coming days. That's your 72-hour jet stream forecast based on a GFS model. Okay. Here is the temperature anomaly forecast on that same model, since there are so many heat advisories and so much incoherent babble, gibberish, and panic about how hot it is. Fun fact, when I drove across the country to San Diego from Allentown, Pennsylvania in 1998, it was over 130 degrees in Yuma, Arizona, and most of Southern California. Also, most of Western Arizona was all above 130 degrees. I didn't find it that bad. I kind of liked it. That's your 72-hour GFS temperature anomaly forecast in degrees Celsius. Last but not least, your pressure and precipitation forecast. You can see some heavy weather here is going to form around Illinois, Indiana, and Kentucky, and then move to the southeast. That's a GFS 72-hour pressure and precipitation forecast. We'll also show the most recent lightning. That's where lightning's been striking in the past about 10 hours from the production of this video, at least. And here is the real-time lightning map, courtesy of blitzortung.org, lightningmaps.org, a property of blitzortung.org. And it looks like we do have some terrestrial strikes in the U.S., south of Des Moines, for example. Also southwest of St. Louis. In the Mark Twain Forest, how about that? May you live in interesting times. Is it psychic powers? Is it divine providence? Or is it just shit luck? Anyway, don't forget to press like, subscribe, share, etc. if you enjoy the content. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists once again, thanks to our new subscribers. And press that share button, especially if you're an influencer. And if you'd like us on your channel, drop us a line. We're more than happy to come on your channel and talk about space weather or whatever you'd like to talk about. Again, our Smash Team homepage, smashamash.com/SmashTeam, features a login screen. And by the way, if you don't even log in, you can still view the latest posts. And we conveniently stream the GOES 18 SUVI imagery here most days. smashamash.com/SmashTeam. And by the way, these videos are brought to you in part by our Gold and Silver Smash Team members. So thanks to you, and all of you viewers who aren't Smash Team members should be thanking the Smash Team because, for example, this computer was bought by the Smash Team. So we roll everything and a lot more back into these videos. They are good and fast, just not cheap. So smashamash.com/SmashTeam if you want additional content. That is our official paywall. We still do have Patreon and more. Find the links on the homepage if you like at smashamash.com. And welcome to the Neo Renaissance. We'll close out with Doppler radar and some more satellite imagery. So here is the lower 48. We'll briefly zoom out to show the full 50 states of ALSA, former nation, now Banana Republic, the allegedly United States of America. There you go. Good luck with that. And you can see those systems here are moving east-southeast. About to move into... Oh, they're going to brush past No, it looks like some of it's going to hit Nashville there. So Nashville, Knoxville, Greensboro, etc. are in the crosshairs. Here is this is the shortwave radiation map depicting clouds and fog, even though half of the country is still dark. And here is the water vapor map. You can see all that air blowing down from Canada here. Right now, the western edge of that is in central North Dakota. Here's this southern flow happening, and it's driving smoke all the way down into the Gulf of Mexico. Anyway, here's your recap. U.S. Doppler radar. It depicts vertical motion in the air column from ground-based Doppler systems. Clouds and fog, satellite systems depicting 3.9 micrometer infrared radiation, and other satellite systems depicting 6.19 micrometer infrared radiation, showing all the water vapor. And it's clear skies over most of Texas. We hope it's clear skies if you're trying to look up at the stars and hoping to see the aurora. Let us know in the comments if you've been seeing the aurora and so on. Drop us a line on social media. Hit us up. We'll see you soon. And we'll get back to you from the bunker here at the Smash News Network. Least busted name in news. It's time to go. Oh, and by the way, while I'm gone, may that solar wind be at your back. I'm going back to the bunker again. All the stupid crap I've heard, I'm gonna listen to again. Whoa!